Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back for another episode. This is Frank Agan. I am founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. This is the Networking RX. Thanks to those who have tuned in the past and who are tuned in today. I will let you know that today is another guest day, as our continuing listeners know that from time to time, I will just be on here talking, sharing insights and articles, things I've come across, my own thoughts, my own experiences with respect to professional relationships and business networking. But from time to time, I will get great and awesome people on here to talk about their take on relationships, their experiences, and the things that they've found. So we're going to jump into that in a minute. Before we do, I want to remind you that we're looking to add quality people to our stable of franchisees. This is a unique franchise opportunity in that it's geared for aspiring entrepreneurs or professionals to add on to what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, our franchisees operate the AmSpirit Business Connections program. The rest of their week, they're accountants, attorneys, financial advisors, realtors, coaches, consultants of various kinds. I'm getting ahead of myself here. If you're interested, contact me. There is an email in the show notes, or you can use the one provided at the end of the podcast. Today, I have on the program with me Jordan Gross. Jordan is a coach. He's a two-time presenter at TEDx, and we're going to touch on that and how that happened. Most people out there haven't got one time on TEDx, and he's got two. But he's also the author of a book that's out, and it's out there in e-form, and it's going to be in printed form eventually. But the name of the book is Journey to Cloud 9, and Jordan and I met through networking. What a concept! What a shock that's how we found each other. And I was on his podcast, and we certainly started talking about what he's doing and how he got his stuff, how he's gotten his stuff going, and how it all relates back to relationships. And I don't want to say everything relates back to relationships, because that opens the door for anybody to get on the podcast. But certainly with respect to what he has discovered in putting together the Journey to Cloud 9, and the book, the Journey to Cloud 9, in his podcast, he has just interviewed tons and tons and tons of people talking about their Cloud 9 moments and having them reflect on those things. And lo and behold, it gets back to relationships. So we'll certainly touch on that. Jordan, welcome.
Hey, what's up, Frank? How are you?
I'm doing great. I need to shut up and let you talk.
No. I talk about myself enough. Let's you chat more if you want. But no, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Where I want you to jump off on this, and I've reading your book, just a story as to how you decided you were going to write this book. I think that's very interesting. We all have I always tell my kids, we're driving along, you'll see somebody doing something weird. Hey, there's a story there. Yeah. And my daughter always reminds her there's always a story. And so there's a story. Right. You didn't say I'm going to write a book. There was something that happened.
Yeah. So Frank, I'm a huge believer in that. There are no ordinary moments. Just like your daughter says, there's a story there. There's a story everywhere, right? I love stories ever since I was a little kid. And the story with the book is so nice because it comes from finding, and I haven't even told you this one yet, but it comes from finding relationships in the unlikeliest of places, right? And it was a Sunday afternoon, late afternoon, and I was with my buddies in Lower Manhattan. I live in Midtown. So I was coming back in an Uber. And normally in an Uber, I'm the guy who chats up the Uber driver, right? I ask a lot of questions. I try to build that relationship with this person, because so often people just sit in the back seat silently and don't even treat this driver like a human being, right? So I always try to change that narrative. But at my friend's house that day, whereas, on a normal Sunday, we just watch football and curse at the TV and, have a great time. On this particular Sunday, we had conversations that were a lot deeper than usual. An acquaintance from high school had just passed away, and I had just read a pretty intense book. So we were talking about life and death and purpose and meaning. So as I'm driving home in this Uber, I was actually being one of those quiet people in the back seat. I wasn't really saying anything. I was just kind of reflecting on our chats from the day. But what ended up happening was I saw a boat in the East River, and the boat was called Cloud 9. So without even thinking about, the silence that I wanted in that moment, I just blurted out to the Uber driver, "What does Cloud 9 mean to you?" And he starts telling me these amazing stories about the day he got married, the day he had a childlike memory where he played with his toys. He told me about his friends growing up, right? That was a biggie for our chat today. He told me about career-related things with his parents. And when I got out of that guy's car, I said, there's more to this, right? Cloud 9 has potential. I want to ask other people what Cloud 9 means to them. So I did. And for the last year, I've asked, hundreds and hundreds of people what their Cloud 9 moments are, how they live a Cloud 9 life. And I've started to uncover some key principles. And one of those key principles, which is the main reason why you and I are talking, is camaraderie. Cloud 9 moments come from friendships, relationships, and the connections we're able to build with other people, just like I did with that Uber driver, because that was a Cloud 9 conversation for me. I'll always remember that.
Now, I guess, how would you define Cloud 9? Not your Cloud 9 moment, but just how do you define that for the people you're talking to?
Mm-hmm. I open it up to interpretation for everybody who I talk to. So it's actually the first question I ask, right? I asked you, Frank. I said, what does Cloud 9 mean to you? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? And again, through all of the people and responses that I've heard, I'm starting to create my own definition. It's taken me so long to do this, but I think every Cloud 9 moment comes when reality somehow surpasses your expectation of that moment, right? You're in awe of what's going on because it's beyond your wildest imagination. And that's when you get the Cloud 9 moment.
Well, and in talking with you, for me, it's never been it's never been about money. It's always about other people. Like you shared a story about the Uber driver. It was, it was getting married. It was his kids, things at work. And it's, it's not about money per se.
No.
Common themes amongst those relationships. Have you touched on any of those? Are there things out there?
Yeah. So obviously with Cloud 9, it's sort of like this state of bliss, right? This state of freedom. Right. And I was talking to a friend of mine, giving her a Cloud 9 interview, and her Cloud 9 moment was a time right before she went to college. Her and her high school girlfriends were having a pool party, and she was inside ready to bring out, I don't know, cake or something for the rest of her friends. And she just had this moment where she's looking out the window at all of them by the pool, having a great time. And she said she just got the chills, right? That's how she had a Cloud 9 moment, was she'd get the chills. And when I thought about that moment, I thought about, times when I got the chills when I was with my friends. And I thought about this fishing trip I went on when I was in college with my buddies. It was like one of our last weeks of school. And honestly, we're all hungover and nobody wants to be on that boat. But one of the guys ended up catching this really big fish after, going through a lot and really battling that fish. And finally it plopped onto the boat and we're all just exuberant, right? And I think that's the key theme with friendships, right? It's because when you have that moment of realization, just like my friend did in her story with her friends, just like we did with the fish, you realize that friendships come with a lot of turmoil and they come with a lot of work, and relationships and connections come with a lot. They come with a lot, right? So when you finally catch that fish and it gets on your boat, or when you finally take a look and realize how grateful and fortunate you are to have these people in your life, that's Cloud 9. That's why relationships and friendships and camaraderie are such a huge component of living a Cloud 9 life.
Right. Now, in the beginning of your book, you have praise for the journey to Cloud 9. You list some, You list some notable people. Adam Grant. Now, are these all people that have you interviewed these people, talked with these people? And
Yeah. So not interviewed all of them.
okay,
Some of the people who left blurbs were like Daniel Pink and Hal Elrod and Marshall Goldsmith, Jeff Hoffman. But this all comes back to relationship building again. And like, like I said to you, Frank, before we got on, the last 2 years have been truly an intentional and deliberate strategy for me to expand my network to people who I know will bring me value at some point, right? But the way that I became a part of their network was by first and foremost adding value to their lives. So for 2 years, I've been give to these people. How can I, and when it's people, like New York Times bestselling authors, what can you give, right? So it's just, can I review your book? Can I review your podcast, right? Little things. Can I support a post that you made? Can I connect you to anybody who I know, right? And probably they're going to say no, but still just offering that value add has been so important for me. And then in return, they've gotten on the phone with me and I've just kept up. I've wished them a happy holiday. I've just said, hey. And then finally now I'm at a point where you mentioned to the audience, Frank, where I'm coming out with a book and it's my turn to receive, right? One of my favorite books is The Go-Giver. And one of the last laws of giving is giving others the opportunity to give by receiving.
Right.
So now I'm finally at a place where I'm looking to receive for people to help me with my book. And because I've been so intentional about helping others and building up this foundation of people, I feel that much more comfortable going to them and asking for something that I want.
No, kudos to you. Earlier this year, I had Dr. Wayne Baker, who was a professor for Adam Grant, on.
Wow.
And he wrote a book called All You Have to Do Is Ask. And he's got research basically backing up that what separates us from the things we need is asking.
Yeah.
People are willing to come through within reason, right?
That's
Nobody's going to say, hey, lend me your Beamer or something like that. That's not reasonable. But to reach out to somebody and say, hey, Adam, could you introduce me to so-and-so? Could you, take 2 minutes and just do this?
Yeah. My mom always used to say this phrase. We've since changed it. I'll tell you about the switch of the story. But she always used to say to me when I was scared to go for something, right? Or to ask somebody something, she always used to say, what's the worst that can happen? And just they say no, right? And I think that's a very popular phrase, but I wanted to switch that up a little bit, right? Because if you don't present yourself in a good, effective manner, then the worst thing that can happen is not just that they say no. It could be that they never say yes, or they tell somebody else to say no, right?
Right.
So I've told my mom, when she gives me that advice, because she still does, because I'm scared to do things sometimes, and she
we all
continues,
are.
She continues to give that advice. Now I make her say, what's the worst thing that can happen if you present your ask in the best way? Well, then it's just that they say no. Because, if you're being nice about it and cordial, then they're not going to say, oh, no, I hate you. I'm never going to do anything for you.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that is key.
Yeah.
Giving people that out, giving people the ability to just gracefully, I understand if it's no.
Yeah.
And leaving it at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's switch gears here real quick. And again, for our listeners, I've got Jordan Gross on, and he is the author of a book called The Journey to Cloud 9. But as I spoke on earlier, he presented two times TEDx at TEDx programs or conferences. How'd you pull that off?
Yeah, so back all about networking, all about creatively adding value to other people. So if anybody wants to give a TED Talk, here is the foolproof way to going out there and using your networking to get a TED Talk, right? So here goes. I'll give you all the details. And I had no real platform when I got my first talk. I had self-published a book that was doing fine, but I didn't have, even thousands of followers at the time. I just had a book. So nobody was bang on my door to come have me speak anywhere. I had to go bang on other doors. But I think that the way that I think is I want to bang on doors in a different way than most other people do. So with a TED Talk, for instance, what most people are going to do is they're going to find a talk that they want to give, and they're going to pitch it to this application pool on a TED website, where hundreds of other people are also filling out applications to give that talk. And they give it their best shot, and maybe they get it and maybe they don't. But I wanted to differentiate myself, like I said. So what I did was I didn't apply through any application forms for any TED Talks or anything like that, but rather I found 5 talks within the tri-state area in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. And I said, who are the organizers of these 5 talks? So I did my research, and I found the 5 organizers, and I found their email addresses, and I found their LinkedIn profiles. And, you know, it was sort of like a modern day, like, investigation. You know, I was just trying to find out as much as I could about them, so that when I reached out, I could make a pitch to be a TED speaker that was way more appropriate, that was way more about adding value to them and their audience than it was about just promoting myself to give a TED Talk. So I ended up connecting with a teacher from upstate New York, and I saw that she taught middle school. And, you know, I just kind of put my first book was about morning routines and overcoming stress and anxiety when you head to school or work in the morning. So I gave her this pitch about how her students could enjoy the talk so that they come to class energized and positive and ready for the day. And I also said that the teachers could come to class or come to work positive and energized and ready for the day. And I said that I would bring her copies of my book for all her students. And I offered, you know, free coaching calls and whatnot. And that's how I got my first TED Talk, by directly building a relationship with this amazing woman who I was just trying to simply add value to. And then at the end of the day, because I was showing her how much value I could bring to her, she wanted to return the favor and asked me to speak on her TEDx stage. So that was the first talk. The second talk was really no different, even though I've got more followers now and I have a second book coming out, and I had done the TED Talk already. I'm sure that helped, that I was a one-time TEDx speaker. But I did the same thing. I found people. I reached out individually. Took me about 3 different people to reach out to really get my foot in the door in one place. And this one was more right place, right time. She said that they just had a speaker drop out, and if I were to send her a synopsis of my talk, then she would consider it, and she ultimately did. But again, that's not the message of the story. The message of the story was being willing to go out of your way to learn about somebody in a way that's going to add value to their lives, and then show them that value, and then ultimately not be afraid to, like you said before, just ask for what you want at the end as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And, you know, for those listening, well, I always say everything I say I need to hear. All right. But for those listening, even if you're not looking to give a TED Talk, it's great advice. If you're looking for a job, if you want to put your application in or your resume into the portal, I can pretty much tell you it's probably not going anywhere. Right. There are hundreds of them that are in there.
Yeah.
Yours can be great. I don't know what to say, you know, and I've you know, been trying to coach my kids on the same thing. You get that personal connection.
That's right.
You put yourself out there, and, you know, you never know, you know, what's the worst that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But great.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead.
It transfers over so well to the job searching world. Yeah. You know, I tell that to friends and people I've worked with as well, clients who are searching for a new job. It's not just it's not just spray and pray, right? You spray your resume all around and pray that somebody picks it up. It's okay, maybe I can focus on a couple key places, make 3 connections at each of those places, and then ultimately, hopefully get a referral, right? Because, you know, we're all human beings at the end of the day, as unbiased as we try to be. If we know somebody, we're just going to be more likely to help them get what they want, right? Because that's going to make us feel good. I think we're inherently good by nature, and helping people we're only going to help people who, you know, can bring some value to us as well. So that's why it's always about adding value for my approach.
People are listening. How could they help you? What could they do?
Help me? Oh, I appreciate it. For me, I just, this book is really meaningful to me. It's a fictional story. So what I'm trying to do is not just throw self-help at people anymore and give advice. That's why I love telling stories. But rather the book is a way for you to really resonate with the characters, get involved with the emotional side of the book, and ultimately realize how to live that Cloud9 life. And chapter 2 is all about camaraderie and what we chatted about today. So I hope you enjoy that chapter, enjoy the book. It's on Amazon, The Journey to Cloud9. And that's really all you can ask for. If you enjoy it, leave a review, tell a friend.
Well, I will put the link to the book in the show notes. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Me personally would be to personally LinkedIn message me. Wow.
Okay.
Jordan Gross on LinkedIn. I'll always respond to my messages on there at some point. So that's me all the time. No VAs or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. Yeah, that was great.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.